the sky, over our parking lots. I know what you were thinking too, but he's good. Ready to go up and dogfight those two airplanes. All right, here we go.
Well, this, as I say, this event actually started in 1967. The fellow who created this aerodrome, this living museum, was named Cole Palin, and he just wanted to encourage interest in World War I aircraft and aviation of that era. He built and restored old airplanes and put on an air show every week for a number of years. Just a little bit here and there, and people would come in, they sort of give him a few bucks, and it was really a shoestring kind of operation. And in the mid-60s, some local flyers from the Mid-Hudson RC Club approached him about having an event here, just World War I airplanes. This was back when scale airplanes were fairly uncommon. So they thought if they had an event, particularly at an old aerodrome like this, where people could come and fly and then look around at old airplanes, that it would be something that might appeal. It started off with, I think, 7 or 10 flyers the first year, and it has grown since then. When we started coming here in 1972, there were probably about 120, 150 flyers, and hundreds of people in the stands watching not just the RC event, but the full-scale air show after that. This has a large group of people who very much respect what Cole was trying to do back then to preserve and protect the heritage behind these early airplanes. And people come from great distances. We come from Kingston, Ontario. I know that there have been people here come from the other end of the Great Lakes, Buffalo. There's a lot of guys from New Jersey. We've had people here from New Brunswick in the past. There was somebody I was meeting today who flew in from Colorado. And I've had friends come in from Michigan. They've sort of planned on staying kind of a week. They just left home, came here, and made a bit of a holiday of it, and stayed for a good long time. We've had people coming in visiting from Europe. I'm sure they're not flying here just for this event, but they were in the area and made a point of coming by here.
Well, we're at the Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome in Rhinebeck, New York, which is about an hour east or west of New York City. It's an aerodrome that has a number of either original or replica vintage aircraft from World War I or the 1920s. And every year, the second weekend in September, weekend after Labor Day, they host a model airplane, World War I Jamboree, for radio-controlled model aircraft that represent World War I or the 1920s and 30s, what we call the golden age of aviation. And I probably have 150 pilots here today, I would think. It's been a 4-day session for me. It's raining right now, so we've had 3 good days of no wind and sun. Today's a little damp, so we're getting ready to take things apart, but it's been a great weekend.
Hi, my name is Brian Baumer. I'm here with Balsa USA at the Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome. We're here in celebration of the Mid-Hudson Valley RC Club's annual Jamboree, as well as celebrating the Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome and its activities, which include vintage aircraft from the beginning of the 1900s up until the 1939 era.
I'm from Kingston, Ontario. My name is Martin Irvine. We've been coming to the event at Rhinebeck for 50 years. First year we were here was 1972. So we haven't made every single one in the meantime, but a fair number of them. And this is sort of our annual mecca. If there's one place we really try to get to, it's Rhinebeck. The plane I'm going to be talking about today is a 1917 Thomas Morse Scout. I built it to 1/3 scale. I got interested in this airplane some years ago because there's a group in Ithaca, New York, who got to building one to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the original airplane's construction in 1917. So they were trying to fly it by 2017. I say I got interested in it when they were just on the ground floor of constructing it. They looked first of all they looked around to find one they could restore. Eventually they did find one, but they did a lot of rebuilding of that. A lot of the parts from that had to be replaced in the course of the restoration. I asked them to pass me on some of the old bits and pieces that were broken, things like stringers and whatnot. They're oil soaked and couldn't be used in a reconstruction. And I incorporated them into my 1/3 scale Thomas Morse, which you see here today. I started building this about 3.5 years ago, I guess. About 1.5 years ago I had a stroke, so that slowed me down a great deal. The plane was largely finished at that point, and my friend Brian Perkins helped me with the final 10% or so. We've just been flying it the last couple of weeks. It's worked out very well. Very few problems that we had to work through in the test flights and whatnot. As I say, it's 1/3 scale, so the wingspan is about 9 feet. With the balance, it's very short-nosed airplane, so it required a lot of lead to balance it out. I'm up about 45 pounds or so, which is heavier than I would like. However, the DA100 engine in it works superbly, and there's more than enough power. Brian did the test flight, and we've had it flown by a couple of other pilots as well. Everyone says it's a nice flying airplane.
Get over the fence, please.
Doing some last-minute cockpit checks. Once you're in the air, that's where you're going to be for a little while. You got to commit to landing again. And the airplane is a handful. They put the male in the front seat. Bring out the other male that they had used. It was a young lad getting his start and dreaming about maybe taking a flight across the Atlantic by the name of Charles Augustus Lindbergh, who would fly the male in an airplane exactly like this. It was a great design, and it was designed by actually someone in England. Takes you right back there. You can buy a lot of these airplanes after World War I, right in the crate for $500. Now you got pilots, young kids, living in the simple life, going to war, and then realizing, you know, the old song goes, how you keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris. So they're looking for adventure, and the time came to be a barnstormer. And this is the kind of airplane you would see fly over a town back after World War I. The maps back then, the navigation, we're so used to plugging in Waze or Google Maps or any of that stuff. But back then, there really wasn't any accurate maps. The maps didn't have the right scales or anything like that, so it was very difficult to get references. So a lot of times they just used cities and rivers, or what we call the iron map, which was the railway. Just follow the railroads. The problem was when you got to a town, the railroad went in 10 different directions. The grand old lady of Old Rhinebeck returns to our gracious field. Ken Cassins at the controls, 1917 Hisso Curtis Jenny. You can see all those wires all over that airplane. They didn't understand construction back then. Back in those days, there was no cantilever wings like we have later on. They were bracing everything just like a bridge. You can see the whirling cylinders, a little bit of a south breeze. You might get the smell of the castor oil. This is an original 1918 rotary engine. And up we go. That profile line was called the Flying Razor. Very thin profile. Looked like a razor blade. You basically had 4 running positions of the engine. Remember I told you like 1 cylinder firing every 32 revolutions, so it'd be 1/8, quarter, half, and full speed. There's 8. Pop, 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 pop. And then you go to quarter, half, and full. And you imagine trying to fly an airplane, stay alive, be a dogfight, and operate that engine all at the same time. On the control stick, there is a flip button. The French call it a pay button. The British call it a flip. We don't have the luxury of that here at Rhinebeck, as you can well tell, so we're very mindful of that when we're bringing these type of airplanes back. Now that raw fuel is going in all the time, so we have to keep flipping that engine to keep that fuel going. Give him a big wave, folks.
Yep. And he's running from his area, and it shows that it's right.
Eat too, much like what you do when you go to a shopping center or a parking lot somewhere and you put those silver reflective things in. It helps reflect the heat, reflect the sun. And that's what's underneath here, several coats.
Balsa USA is considered the premier supplier of World War I aircraft kits in the United States and possibly around the world. The vast majority of planes that you see here are assembled from our kits, and the reason that is because we provide the highest quality kits available.
All right, high in the sky, over our parking lots.
This is a German Fokker Dr.1 triplane, and designed by Anthony Fokker, who was actually a Dutchman. He tried to sell his Fokker design to the British. British didn't want anything to do with it. They thought their ideas were better, so he sold them to the Germans. The Fokker DR stands for Dreidecker. If you don't need any German, it's eins, fein, drei. Drei is three. Dreidecker is German for three wings. So it was the Fokker three-winger, or Dreidecker. DR1, the first one he made. It's a plane that's made famous by the Red Baron. Maybe even made more famous by Snoopy, because Snoopy and whatever, the Red Baron. People usually see these things red because the Red Baron painted his red. Mine's in green. This is actually the factory finish, the way they come out. Interesting thing about the Fokker triplanes, they only made 303 of them. They did not make many of them because they weren't very good. The British had the Sopwith Camel. That's a Snoopy was flying the Sopwith Camel. They made over 6,000 Sopwith Camels. The Sopwith Camel was a much better flying airplane than the triplane. Triplane had three wings, it was draggy, it was slow. Very maneuverable, but if you wanted to run away, it wasn't very good because you weren't running very fast. They could catch you. If you want to hang around and fight, they were okay, but you had to be a good pilot to hang around and fight. And that's why guys like the Red Baron liked to fly them, because it was sort of an ego thing, that they were good enough pilots that they could hang around and fly these things and be competitive. They did turn tightly, they climbed well, but they were not very fast and didn't last very long. They were soon replaced. I think they lasted less than a year, and they were replaced by the Fokker D7, which was a biplane, much faster and easier to fly, more competitive.
Very maneuverable, just like you see these aircraft today that are short wings like extras and such. There's three examples still left of the world flying today. Up next, as I mentioned, Paul Palin had a special. It's okay. We'll bring that airplane back in. This is going to be fast, I think. Most dogfights didn't last very long. Most pilots didn't last very long. After 11 days, if you can survive 11 days in combat, you're getting good, and good with your airplane. The different shapes, sizes, and styles of these two aircraft from two opposing countries. Louis Blériot saved the SPAD company back in the day. And now SPAD gets on the tail of the triplane. The Brisfit, the Biff they used to call it, the Bristol F-2B. One of the 6 airplanes was used in a film called Death Hunt that starred Charles Bronson. Had Mr. Bronson been alive today, he would say, please don't watch the movie, it was terrible. But just the same, it was neat to see one of these airplanes in there on skis, no less. And now, diving down, that fast SPAD Catching up with the Fokker triplane. What a photo that would make over our village. I'm going to tail of this one right now, and we're going to save my buddy in the F2B. Triplane very maneuverable, as you can see. Uh-oh. But get triple up to speed by taking a hit.